The station hung in space like a giant wheel, spinning slowly among the stars. Inside its halls, beings from 47 different worlds gathered in the council chamber. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed oxygen, others floated in special tanks filled with purple gas. They had come from across the galaxy to do what they did best, make decisions that affected everyone. Daiho stood at the speaker's platform. He was a human, which meant he looked small compared to most of the others in the room. His hair was black with some gray at the temples. His face showed no emotion as he waited for the chamber to quiet down. Next to him stood Yuna, a woman with sharp eyes who carried a data pad filled with information about Earth and its colonies. "The human delegation may begin," announced the council speaker. A being that looked like a floating crystal with lights moving inside it. Daiho stepped forward. He did not smile or bow. He simply spoke in a clear, calm voice. "We request membership in the Galactic Council. We have been traveling in space for 80 years. We have 12 colony worlds. We follow the laws of peaceful contact. We wish to trade and learn from other species." He stopped talking and stepped back. That was it. No long speech, no fancy words. The chamber erupted in noise, laughter mostly. A being that looked like a giant mantis clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement. 80 years? We have been in space for 8,000 years. Another voice came from a creature covered in blue feathers. 12 colonies? We have 1,200. The speaker tried to restore order, but the comments kept coming. A delegate who looked like a walking tree made of copper spoke next. "I have reviewed their technology. They still use chemical rockets for some of their ships. Chemical rockets, like children playing with fireworks." More laughter filled the chamber. Daiho stood still, his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed nothing. Yuna glanced at him, waiting for him to respond, but he remained silent. A tall, thin being with 6 arms raised a question. "How long do humans live?" "Approximately 80 to 100 years, Yuna answered when Daiho did not speak. Gasps and chittering sounds filled the room. "So short," someone called out. "I am 342 years old. How can they accumulate wisdom in such brief lives?" Another delegate stood, this one looking like a bear made of shadows. "I have also studied their history. They have had 17 major wars in the last 200 years alone. They are violent, dangerous, unstable. They still have nations fighting each other on their home world," added another voice. The speaker raised its light higher. "Let us vote on the application. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Galactic Council?" 2 lights appeared on the voting board. Out of 47 members, only 2 voted yes. "The application is denied," the speaker announced. "Perhaps in another century, when humanity has matured, they may apply again." The chamber began to empty. Delegates floated, walked, or slithered toward the exits, already talking about other matters. To them, this was just another routine rejection. New species applied all the time. Few were accepted. Daiho stood at the platform, watching them leave. Yuna touched his arm gently. "Daiho, should we not say something? Should we not defend ourselves?" He shook his head slowly. Then he picked up the small folder that contained Earth's application. He turned his back to the chamber and began walking toward the exit. His steps were steady and measured. He did not look back. As they walked through the station's corridors, Yuna could not hold back her frustration anymore. "They laughed at us. They treated us like children. Should we not have argued our case better? Told them about our achievements, our art, our music, our—" "Words are cheap," Daiho interrupted quietly. "Anyone can make promises. Anyone can give speeches. They have heard thousands of speeches from hundreds of species." "Then what do we do?" Yuna asked. Daiho stopped walking and looked out through a large window at the stars beyond. "We go home. We continue our work. We build, we grow, we prove ourselves not with words but with actions. And if they never accept us? A small smile appeared on Daeho's face for the first time that day. Then we will have built something that does not need their acceptance. They reached their ship, a small vessel that the council members would probably call primitive. It did not have the smooth, flowing lines of the advanced ships docked nearby. It looked blocky and functional, like a tool rather than a work of art. As the ship left the station, Daeho sat in the observation room and pulled out a small journal. He opened it to a blank page and wrote a single sentence. They laughed at our limits. Good. Let them. Limits are just problems waiting for human stubbornness. He closed the journal and looked out at the infinite darkness of space. Somewhere out there, humanity would find its place, not because some council said they belonged, but because humans would build that place themselves. The ship turned away from the bright station and headed toward the distant, small star that humans called Sol. Behind them, the council continued its meetings, already forgetting about the quiet man who had asked for nothing more after their rejection. But Daeho had not asked for more because he did not need to. He had a plan, and that plan had just begun. 10 years had passed since the council's rejection. In those 10 years, something strange had happened in human space. Or rather, something strange had not happened. The humans had stopped talking to the council entirely. No requests for trade agreements. No applications for scientific exchanges. No angry messages demanding respect. Nothing at all. It was as if humanity had simply turned its back on the entire galactic community and walked away. Daeho now had more gray in his hair than black. He worked from a simple office on a space station orbiting Mars. The sign on his door read, Outer Reach Initiative, but most people just called it what it was, the Expansion Project. Director, we have confirmation, said Jiho, walking into the office without knocking. He was young, maybe 25, with oil stains on his hands and excitement in his eyes. Colony 217 just sent their first message. Atmosphere processors are working perfectly. Daeho looked up from his screen and nodded. Good. How long until they are self-sufficient? 8 months, maybe less. Jiho threw himself into a chair. You know what is funny? The council said that system was worthless, too much radiation from the binary stars. They said nothing could live there. And yet people are living there, Daeho said with a slight smile. Because we built underground for the first 5 years and used the radiation to power our generators, Jiho laughed. What they saw as a problem, we saw as free energy. This was the pattern that had emerged across human space. While the council species built their colonies on easy Earth-like worlds, humans went to the difficult places, the systems with unstable stars, the planets with harsh gravity, the asteroids that required living underground or in specially built habitats. Why? Because those places were empty. No one else wanted them, and humans had learned long ago how to survive in terrible conditions. On a planet called Taiyang 4, which orbited a red dwarf star that flickered and flared unpredictably, a woman named Suman walked through her colony's main street. The street was actually a tunnel, carved deep into the planet's crust, where the temperature stayed stable and the radiation could not reach. Suman was the colony administrator, which meant she handled everything from food distribution to settling arguments between neighbors. Today she was meeting with a visitor, which was unusual. Visitors were rare this far from Earth. The visitor was a merchant from a species called the Voltar. He looked like a large lizard walking on 2 legs, with skin that changed colors based on his mood. Right now, his skin was showing patterns of confusion and surprise. I do not understand, the Voltar said, his translator device turning his hisses into human language. The council survey said this world was uninhabitable. Class 9 hazard. No atmosphere worth breathing. Surface temperature swings of 200 degrees. Random radiation bursts from the star. Why would anyone build a colony here? Suman smiled. Because no one else wanted it. Because the minerals in the crust are valuable. Because the radiation bursts follow a pattern if you study them long enough. And because we can live here, so why not? The Voltar's skin rippled with purple confusion. But the difficulty makes us stronger, Suman finished. Every problem is just a puzzle. We like puzzles. The merchant had come looking for rare earth metals. He had heard rumors that humans were pulling them from asteroids and harsh worlds that other species had written off as worthless. Now he was seeing it with his own eyes. These humans had built an entire city underground, with farms lit by artificial suns and water pulled from ice deep below the surface. Back on Mars, Daiho received a communication from Earth. It was not from the government or the military. It was from the Galactic Council. "They want to talk," Yuna said. She was older now, too, with lines around her eyes from years of looking at screens and studying alien biology. "They are asking if we want to reconsider our application." "What did you tell them?" Daiho asked. "Nothing yet. I wanted to ask you first." Daiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell them we appreciate their interest, but we are busy with our current projects." Yuna raised her eyebrows. "Just that? Nothing more?" "Nothing more," Daiho confirmed. "We do not need their permission to exist. We do not need their approval to thrive." The message went back to the council, and it caused quite a stir. Species that had been in the council for thousands of years could not remember the last time someone had turned down an invitation to talk. It was seen as incredibly rude, or incredibly arrogant, or possibly both. But Daiho did not care about their opinions. He cared about results. Jiho's modular ship design had become the standard for human vessels. They were not pretty. They looked like boxes attached to other boxes, with engines stuck on wherever they fit. But they had one advantage that no other species' ships had. You could repair them with almost anything. Run out of a special part? Make a new one from local materials. Need to expand the ship? Attach another module. Have to abandon it? Take the modules apart and use them to build a station. Other species needed shipyards with precise manufacturing. Humans needed welders and determination. In the council chambers, reports started coming in. Humans had been spotted in 78 systems previously marked as too dangerous for colonization. Human traders were selling minerals that supposedly could not be extracted from worthless asteroids. Human habitats were appearing in places where the council had never bothered to send survey teams. "They are spreading like a virus," one council member complained. "They are like insects," another agreed, "living in the cracks and crevices where real civilizations cannot go." But a few council members were paying closer attention. They saw something different. They saw a species that did not wait for permission, a species that looked at obstacles and saw opportunities, a species that thrived on difficulty. One of these observers sent a private message to Daiho. "You are playing a long game. I see it now. The council will come to need you eventually." Daiho read the message and deleted it without responding. He did not need validation from them. He had work to do. On Taeyang 4, Sumin stood on the surface for a brief moment, wearing a protective suit. The star was calm right now, not flaring. She could see the construction crew in the distance, building a new dome that would eventually house gardens. She thought about the council members who had laughed at humans for being primitive. She wondered if they knew that their mockery had freed humanity to become something they could never understand. A species that did not need anyone's approval to reach for the stars. The star flickered once, a warning. Sumin went back underground, back to her city of stubborn, creative, impossible humans who had built a home where none should exist. And across human space, on 217 worlds and countless stations, the same story played out again and again. Humans turning away from the easy path, choosing the difficult one and making it work through pure determination. Daeho sat in his office and updated his journal. Year 10. They still do not understand. That is fine. Let them watch. The plague started on a council trade world called Varen Prime. One day, people were healthy. The next day, they could not speak. By the end of the week, they were dead. The silence before death gave the disease its name, the Red Silence. It spread fast, faster than anyone expected. Trade ships carried it from world to world. Within 3 months, 38 of the 47 council species had reported cases. The death count rose into the billions. The council's best doctors and scientists worked around the clock. They had technology that could cure almost anything. They had knowledge from thousands of years of medical advancement. But the Red Silence was different. It attacked genetic code in ways they had never seen before. The more complex a species' DNA, the faster the disease killed. On Earth, Daeho was old now. His hair was white, and he walked with a cane. He had officially retired from the Outer Reach Initiative, but everyone still asked his opinion on important matters. He spent his days in a small house by the ocean, writing his memoirs and watching the waves. Yuna called him on a video link. She looked worried. Have you seen the news from Council Space? I have, Daeho said calmly. The plague. They are dying by the millions. Their medical facilities are overwhelmed. Some worlds have gone completely dark. No communications at all. Yuna paused. Daeho, they sent us a message. What kind of message? A request for help. They want our doctors, our scientists, any medical knowledge we can share. They are desperate. Daeho was quiet for a long time. The waves crashed against the shore outside his window. Somewhere in the distance, a seabird called out. What do you think we should do? Yuna asked softly. What do you think we should do? Daeho replied. Yuna's voice became firm. I think we should help them, not because they deserve it, not because they apologized for laughing at us 15 years ago, because they have not apologized, but because people are dying and we might be able to stop it. Daeho smiled slightly. That is why I made you chief medical advisor all those years ago. Send the Perseverance. Tell Captain Nari she has full authority to do whatever is needed. 3 days later, a human medical vessel called the Perseverance arrived at Varen Prime. It was not an impressive ship by council standards. It looked like a cargo hauler that someone had attached medical labs to. But it carried something the council did not have: hope. Captain Nari was a no-nonsense woman who had spent 20 years running emergency medical missions to human colonies in dangerous systems. She was used to working with limited resources and high pressure. This was just another mission, except on a larger scale. Her chief medical officer was a man named Hyun. He was young compared to Nari, only 35, but he had a gift for seeing patterns in genetic code that others missed. When they arrived at Varen Prime, they found a disaster. The hospitals were full. The dead were being stored in warehouses because there was nowhere else to put them. The council's doctors looked at the human ship with a mixture of hope and skepticism. You truly think you can help? Asked a council doctor who looked like a floating jellyfish with bioluminescent organs. We have the best medical technology in the galaxy. If we cannot stop this, how can you? Nari did not argue. She just said, let us see the patients. The human team worked in shifts. 72 hours on, 12 hours off. They did not have the council's advanced scanners or nanosurgical tools. What they had was experience with dealing with disasters and a different way of thinking. After the first week, Hyun called a meeting with his team. I think I see something. The disease targets complex genetic structures. The more evolved a species, the more points of attack it has. But humans have relatively simple DNA compared to most council species. So we are primitive again, one of the nurses said with a bitter laugh. No, Hyun corrected. We are resistant. Our simplicity is our shield. The disease cannot get enough of a foothold in human cells to reproduce effectively. The next discovery came from an unexpected source. A human doctor named Kwan was working with blood samples when she noticed something. The few council members who survived the disease all have one thing in common. Their genetic code has sections that look simpler, less complex, almost human-like. This was the breakthrough. The human team worked with council scientists to develop a treatment that used human DNA as a template. It was not a cure exactly, but a genetic patch that simplified the areas of DNA that the red silence attacked. The first patient to receive the treatment was a young council member from the mantis-like species that had laughed at humans 15 years earlier. Her name was unpronounceable in human language, but she knew about humans. Her parent had been at that council meeting. The treatment worked. She lived. Within a month, the Perseverance team had treated thousands. They trained council medical staff on the procedure. They shared all their data freely, asking for nothing in return. When a council delegation arrived at the Perseverance to formally thank the humans, they found Captain Nari in the medical bay, still working. She had not slept in 36 hours. Captain Nari, the head of the delegation said, the council wishes to express its deepest gratitude. You have saved millions of lives, perhaps billions if this treatment continues to work. We are prepared to offer significant rewards, technology, resources, territory, whatever you wish. Nari looked up from her work. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. We do not want rewards. We want people to stop dying. That is enough. But surely, no, Nari said firmly. We came because it was the right thing to do, not because we expected payment. If you want to thank us, then treat the next species that asks for your help with more kindness than you showed us. The delegation left, stunned and humbled. Back on Earth, Daiho received reports of what was happening in council space. Yuna visited him in person this time, taking a shuttle from the orbital station where she now worked. They are calling our doctors heroes, Yuna told him as they sat on his porch, watching the sunset. The council wants to give us medals, rewards, membership again. And what did our people say? Nari told them we do not want medals. Hyun said he just wants to finish the job and go home. They are very much your students, Daeho. Daeho chuckled. They are their own people. I just showed them that you do not need approval to do good work. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere far above, in the darkness of space, human doctors were still working to save alien lives. They did not do it for glory or recognition. They did it because it needed doing. The council will ask us to join them again, Yuna said. What should we tell them this time? Daeho thought about the question. He thought about the young man who had stood silently while aliens laughed at his species. He thought about all the years of building, growing, and proving humanity's worth through actions instead of words. We will see, he said finally. But whatever we decide, it will be on our terms, not theirs. The waves continued to crash against the shore, constant and patient, just like humanity itself. The invitation came 3 years after the plague had been stopped. It was formal and polite, asking if humanity would send a delegation to the council for important discussions regarding mutual cooperation and future relations. Daeho was 83 years old. His hands shook slightly when he held things, and his doctor had told him to avoid stress. But when the human government asked if he would lead the delegation, he said yes without hesitation. You do not have to do this, Yuna told him as they prepared for the journey. She was old too, her hair silver and her movements slower than they once were. We can send someone younger, someone stronger. They did not invite someone younger, Daiho replied. They invited me specifically, the silent man who turned away. They want to see if I will turn away again. The journey to the council station took 2 weeks. Daiho brought a small delegation. Yuna came as his advisor just like 18 years ago. There was also Minho, Daiho's grandson, a ship pilot with steady hands and a quick smile. And there was Wu Jin, a historian who had spent years studying the records of human expansion into space. When their ship docked at the council station, they were greeted with ceremony. Music played. Banners hung from the walls, showing symbols of peace and cooperation. Council members lined the corridors, watching the humans pass. It was very different from 18 years ago when they had arrived to mockery and laughter. The council chamber looked the same wheel of seats, the same voting board on the wall, but the faces watching Daiho were different now. There was no laughter in their eyes. There was respect and curiosity, and perhaps a bit of shame. The speaker, still the same floating crystal being, addressed the chamber. We welcome the human delegation. 18 years ago, this council rejected humanity's application for membership. Today, we wish to correct that decision. The council unanimously votes to offer humanity full membership, with all rights and privileges, effective immediately. There was no vote. It had already been decided. This was just the formal announcement. Daiho stood at the same platform where he had stood all those years ago. He looked older, frailer, but his eyes were just as calm and steady as they had been back then. Thank you for this generous offer, he said slowly, but humanity must decline. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. This was not what anyone had expected. You decline? The speaker asked, its lights flickering with confusion. But this is what you requested 18 years ago. 18 years ago, we requested permission to join your community, Daiho agreed. Today, we do not need that permission. We have built our own community. But surely you see the benefits of membership, a council member protested. Access to our technology, our trade networks, our knowledge. We have access to those things already, Daiho said. Your merchants come to our worlds. Your scientists share research with ours now. We trade information and goods freely. What would membership give us that we do not already have? There was silence in the chamber. No one had a good answer. Wu Jin stepped forward, carrying a data display. If I may, I would like to present some information. He was nervous, speaking before the entire Galactic Council, but his voice was steady. The display activated, showing charts and numbers. 18 years ago, the Council rejected humanity for being too primitive, too short-lived, too violent, and too technologically behind. These were our weaknesses, but we turned them into strengths. The first chart appeared. Short lives. You saw this as a flaw. We saw it as faster generational change. While your species takes centuries to adapt to new ideas, we adapt in decades. We pass knowledge to our children who improve on it and pass it to their children. 3 human generations have been born since our rejection, each one built on what the previous learned. Another chart. Primitive technology. You laughed at our chemical rockets, but our simple technology can be built anywhere. From anything. We do not need rare materials or specialized facilities. A human engineer with basic tools can repair almost any human ship. Can you say the same? More images appeared, showing human colonies on harsh worlds. You called us violent because of our history of wars, but that history taught us crisis management, triage, and emergency response better than any species that has lived in peace for millennia. When the plague came, our doctors knew how to work under impossible conditions because our ancestors had done it on Earth for thousands of years. The final image showed a map of human space, hundreds of colonies scattered across systems that the Council had marked as worthless or uninhabitable. You rejected us because we did not fit your model of what an advanced civilization should be. And you were right. We do not fit your model. We built our own. Wu Jin stepped back, and Deho spoke again. The Council showed us that we did not belong in your system. That was valuable information. So we built a system that works for us. One of the older council members, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal, spoke up. We were wrong to reject you. We were wrong to laugh. We are trying to make amends. Why do you refuse our apology? This is not about apologies, Deho said gently. This is about independence. For 18 years, humanity has thrived without needing council approval. We have made our own decisions, built our own future, succeeded and failed on our own terms. That independence is precious to us. Then what do you want? The speaker asked. Daiho smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. We want to be friends, partners. We want to trade with you, learn from you, share with you. But we want to do it as equals, not as junior members grateful for your acceptance. Minho spoke up for the first time. My grandfather taught me that respect is earned, not given. You did not respect us 18 years ago. That was fair. We had not earned it yet, but we have earned it now, through our actions. We want a relationship based on mutual respect, not hierarchy. The chamber was quiet. Council members looked at each other, uncertain. Finally, a council member from a species that looked like living glass spoke. What if we offered associate status? You would cooperate with the council, participate in some programs, but maintain full independence in your own affairs. No one would have authority over human decisions. Deho considered this. He looked at Yuna, who nodded slightly. He looked at Wu Jin and Minho, who both seemed to think it was reasonable. We would need to discuss this with our government, Deho said, but it sounds like a good starting point for negotiations. The speaker's lights swirled in a pattern that meant acceptance. Then let us begin those negotiations, and let us do so as equals. Deho stood at the platform, the same place where he had been rejected so long ago. Back then, he had turned and walked away in silence. Now he turned to leave again, but this time he paused and looked back. 18 years ago, I turned away from this chamber. Some of you thought it was pride. Some thought it was anger. It was neither. It was simply the understanding that we needed to find our own path. Thank you for laughing at us. It freed us to become something you never expected. He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council sat in silence, thinking about the lesson they had learned from the quiet man who had turned away twice, and both times had been right to do so. Outside the chamber, Minho asked his grandfather, Do you think they will agree to the associate status? Deho leaned on his cane and smiled. I think they will. But more importantly, I think we have shown them that humanity does not need anyone's permission to be great. That is a lesson worth more than any council membership. They walked through the station toward their ship, ready to return home and report what had happened. The future was uncertain, but it was a future that humanity would shape with its own hands, just as they always had. Deho died on a Tuesday morning, 7 years after his second visit to the council. He was 89 years old. He passed away in his sleep at his house by the ocean, the same house where he had written his journals and watched the waves for so many years. The news spread quickly. Within hours, messages came from across human space. Colony governors sent their condolences. Ship captains lowered their flags to half-mast. On Taiyang 4, the colony that had been built on an uninhabitable world, Sumin ordered 3 days of remembrance. What surprised everyone was the response from the council. 40 different species sent representatives to Earth for the funeral. They came uninvited but were welcomed anyway, because that was what Daiho would have wanted. The funeral was held on a hill overlooking the ocean. It was simple, just as Daiho had requested in his will. No speeches, no ceremony, just people gathering to remember a man who had changed the course of human history by staying quiet and walking away. But afterward, at the reception, the stories came out. People shared memories of Daiho, the young engineer he had encouraged, the colony administrator he had advised, the doctor he had sent to save millions of lives. Each person had a story about how Daiho had influenced them, usually with just a few quiet words. Among the mourners was the young council member from the mantis-like species, the one whose parent had laughed at humans 25 years ago. She had been one of the first patients saved during the plague. She approached Yuna, who stood alone looking at the ocean. "I wanted to thank him," she said through her translator. "He saved my life." "He would have said Captain Nari and Dr. Hyun saved your life," Yuna replied. "He just made it possible for them to do their work." That was his gift, was it not? Making things possible for others. The mantis being paused. "My parent told me about the first time humans came to the council. They said your delegation leader was insulted but too proud to show it. They were wrong, were they not?" Yuna smiled sadly. Daiho was not insulted. He simply understood that actions matter more than words. Your parents' laughter did not hurt him. It freed him. Back on Taiyang 4, Sumin walked through the colony's main plaza. It was no longer just tunnels underground. Over the years, they had built domes on the surface, using technology that predicted the star's flares and protected against radiation. The colony now had 15,000 residents and was completely self-sufficient. In the center of the plaza, workers were building something new, a statue. It showed a man standing with his hands behind his back, looking forward with calm eyes. At the base, they were carving an inscription. "What are you going to write?" asked a young child who was watching the workers. "The words Director Daiho wrote in his journal," Sumin explained. "The ones he wrote right after the council rejected us." She read from a datapad. "He turned away and showed us the path forward." The child thought about this. Did he really show us the path? Or did we have to find it ourselves? Sumin laughed. "Both. That was the point." On Earth, the human Senate was in session. They were finally voting on the Council's offer of associate status. The negotiations had taken 7 years, with both sides being very careful to respect each other's independence. Now it was time to make a final decision. Yunji, who had been Daiho's student and was now humanity's chief negotiator with the Council, stood before the Senate. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that reminded many people of her mentor. "The proposed agreement gives us everything we need," she told the assembled senators. "We cooperate with the Council on matters of mutual interest. We participate in scientific exchanges, trade agreements, and cultural programs. But we maintain complete independence over our own affairs. They cannot tell us what to do, and we cannot tell them what to do. We are partners, not subordinates." "And if we vote no?" asked one senator. "Then nothing changes," Yunji said simply. "We continue as we have been. We remain independent, we keep building colonies, we keep trading with Council species on our own terms. The question is not whether we need them. The question is whether this partnership makes both sides stronger." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would become an associate member of the Galactic Council, with full independence guaranteed by treaty. When Yunji sent the news to the Council, she included a personal message. "Daiho did not live to see this day, but he made it possible. He taught us that we do not need anyone's approval to exist, but we can still choose to cooperate with others when it benefits everyone. That lesson will guide how we work with the Council going forward." The response came from the speaker itself. "We have learned much from humanity in the past 25 years. Perhaps the most important lesson is that rejection and failure can be the beginning of something greater. not the end. Director Daiho turned away from us twice. Both times, he was right to do so. We honor his memory by ensuring that this partnership respects the independence he fought to preserve. On Taiyang 4, the statue was finished. At the dedication ceremony, Sumin stood before a crowd of thousands. Many of them had been born on this world, children who had never seen Earth. To them, living underground and building domes to protect against stellar radiation was normal. They did not think of themselves as living somewhere impossible. They just thought of it as home. 25 years ago, the Galactic Council told us this world was uninhabitable, Suman said. They were looking at it through their eyes, using their standards. Director Daiho taught us to look at it through our own eyes. Where they saw impossible obstacles, we saw interesting challenges. Where they saw a worthless rock, we saw a home. She gestured to the statue. This man never raised his voice. He never demanded respect. He never argued or defended humanity against those who mocked us. He simply turned away and got to work. And by doing so, he showed us that the best response to doubt is not anger, but achievement. The crowd applauded. Children who had never met Daiho looked at his statue and asked their parents who he was. The parents told them stories, and those children would someday tell their own children, passing down the legend of the quiet man who changed everything by saying nothing. In a small archive on Mars, Jiho, now in his 50s and one of humanity's leading ship designers, was going through Daiho's personal papers. The family had donated them to be preserved for history. Most of it was technical notes and meeting minutes. But there was also the journal. Jiho opened to the first entry written 25 years ago, right after the Council's rejection. They laughed at our limits. Good, let them. Limits are just problems waiting for human stubbornness. He flipped through the pages, reading entries from over the years. One caught his eye, written about 10 years ago. The Council will offer us membership again someday. When they do, I hope we have the wisdom to accept it only on our terms. Independence is not the same as isolation. We can stand alone and still choose to stand together with others. The last entry was written just days before Daiho's death. I am old now. My hands shake. My eyes are weak. But I can still see the future clearly. Humanity will thrive not because we are stronger or smarter than other species, but because we turn obstacles into opportunities. That is our gift. That is our strength. Let no one, not even ourselves, make us forget that. Jiho closed the journal carefully. He looked out the window at the red planet below, at the domes and tunnels where millions of humans lived and worked. He thought about all the colonies scattered across space, each one a testament to human determination. The Council had mocked them once. They had called humans primitive, short-lived, and violent. They had laughed at chemical rockets and simple technology, but the silent man had turned away. And in turning away, he had shown humanity a path that was uniquely their own. Not better than the Council's path, not worse. Just different. And that difference had made all the difference. Below, on Earth, children were being born who would never know a time when humans were not accepted as equals in the galaxy. They would grow up hearing stories about Daiho, about how he stayed silent when others expected him to argue, how he walked away when others expected him to beg. And they would learn the lesson he had taught, that respect cannot be demanded or given, it can only be earned. And the best way to earn it is not through words, but through actions. Not by seeking approval, but by building something worth approving. The waves continued to crash against the shore of Daiho's empty house. The stars continued to shine on the colonies he had made possible. And humanity continued its journey into space, independent and proud, partners with the Council but never subordinate to it. The Council had mocked. The silent man had turned away. and in doing so, he had built an empire they could not ignore.